I'm Jeremy Sims, and this is Boring Bible Study. Normally, I like to study a passage real in depth and just kind of break it down little by little, kind of offer my perspective on it for whatever it's worth. But I'm going to do something different today where I want to actually talk about memes. I think I'm going to call this meme warfare, and I want to address some pro-abortion memes, pro-choice memes, I guess. So here's the thing. Memes in some ways are really simplistic arguments, right? So you might say, why is this even worth addressing? Well, the reason it's worth addressing is, I think, twofold. One, even though it's not the highest level argument, it's, you could like read philosophy papers from pro-choice people that are way higher level. Well, how many of us actually read philosophy papers? Very few of us. Yet everybody reads memes. So when you're talking to people who are pro-choice, then you're likely to encounter the same sort of things you see in memes. We don't usually think of things, unfortunately, I wish I could say otherwise, but I don't think most of us think of things on political issues really have gone that much in depth, as much as we should have to think about these things in a very nuanced way. So when you talk to people about these issues, you're probably going to get that kind of meme level content. So if you can address that, if you can figure out how to address the meme level issues, the rest usually isn't that hard. The other thing is there's actually a real benefit into, though memes might not be the most complicated form of the argument, you're taking a really complicated issue and you're trying to make your best points. You're trying to make it as compact as possible where you can make the biggest impact in the smallest package because, you're trying to do just a picture and a few words on the screen to make your point. And again, that really kind of distills it down to its essence. So if you can understand that, then you understand the argument, at least on its popular basic level. So I don't claim to be convincing. I don't know how to be convincing to people. Unfortunately, I wish I did, but this isn't so much a trying to convert other people sort of video. Instead, this is I want to talk to Christians who are on the pro-life side, which most of them are. Most people fundamentally understand that murder should be illegal. If you're a Christian, that value is pretty well instilled into you. So most people understand that, but maybe you haven't, on your side, thought about all the particular nuances of it, and when somebody on the pro-choice side throws out, some arguments you hadn't considered or make some accusations or, throw something at you, the idea is I want to kind of walk through this with you, because though I'm not necessarily good at being convincing, I'm very good at thinking things through step by step very carefully and kind of being able to analyze it. So that's what I want to do here. Now, before we get into that, I want to talk about how we should make arguments, like formal arguments, like explaining our views on things. We need to understand our own positions, we need to understand other people's positions, and to be able to respond to those. So on the pro-life side, there's a really strong argument, and that is that murder is wrong, that the unborn human is still a human being and deserves legal protection. It's wrong to murder him, just like it's wrong to murder him outside the womb, it's wrong to murder him inside the womb. Location does not determine personhood. So that is a good argument. That is, obviously, I am convinced of that argument. But we should acknowledge that the pro-choice side also has a good argument, and that is they say it's all about bodily autonomy. I should be able to control what happens to my body. And if you're going to take that control away from me, you are taking away one of my basic human rights. And I know that's, I know as pro-life people, we're going to have thoughts about that, but just taking it at that level by itself, in a vacuum, that's a good point. I also want to be in charge of my body. I'm sure you do as well. Everybody wants to be in charge of their own body. And, if we have an unpleasant medical condition we want to get rid of, we'd all like to be able to get rid of that unpleasant medical condition, right? Right. So both sides have decent arguments at their fundamental basis, at least a big grain of reasonable truth in there. Don't murder people, bodily autonomy. But then you need to respond to the other side's views on things. So the pro-life side, I think, does a good job of this. They say, we understand you're concerned about bodily autonomy. However, the right to swing your fist ends at my face. In other words, you cannot use your bodily autonomy to physically harm another person. In the case of abortion, it's not one person's bodily autonomy, it's two. There are two people involved now. And it's not okay for you to assert your own bodily autonomy by murdering another person. It's just as wicked inside the womb as it is outside the womb, and it should be just as protected from happening. So that is the pro-life position. I think that's a very good response. Here's the thing. On the pro-choice side, I don't feel like they usually make much effort to respond to pro-choice or pro-life arguments. They just kind of ignore it because the entire thing ends up hinging on whether or not it all hinges on the life of the child. Now, there are two arguments that the pro-choice person can make, and we're about to get in the memes. We're almost there. But there are two routes the pro-choice person can make. First, they can say, I don't believe that is a person. I don't believe that is a human being inside the mother's womb. And then they need to come up with some sort of explanation for why they believe that. That's the first thing they could do. The second thing they could do is, I understand it is a person, but bodily autonomy is so important that it's worth killing somebody over. And I don't find that the pro-choice people usually are willing to do that. They don't want to talk about the life of the child, even whether it is the life of the child in any detail, to actually make an argument for it not being a person. And they don't. They might say bodily autonomy still, but they don't ever acknowledge that it's a person they're killing in the process. So they're ignoring that fundamental issue of, is it a human being? They don't want to think about it. So let's look at a few memes and just kind of walk through the process and see what we can find. So I'm going to do, I think I got the best results when I did pro-choice Christian memes. I'm putting Christian in there because I want things that kind of interact with Christianity a little bit, if I can find something like that. So let's check out this one. Make sure I'm popping up right. Yep. Okay. So we've got pro-choicers, Christians. The Christian shoots the pro-choicers, and then the Christians turn and ask, why does the pro-choice movement hate us so much? So what's the point of this one? Well, the point is that they hate us because we're messing with their bodily autonomy. We're trying to destroy it. That's the essence of this argument. Now, this is the thing I want to point out. Does this anywhere address the life of the child, whether or not it's a person or whether you somehow have some way of justifying killing that person? No, it does nothing to address that issue. So if you're talking to somebody and they do this, just immediately, as quickly as you can, redirect towards, okay, you don't like that we're messing with bodily autonomy, but you understand we're doing this because we're concerned about the life of the child. Why do you think it's okay to kill a child to assert your bodily autonomy? You need to point back to that as quickly as possible. Another thing to do here is, it's kind of funny that they're painting the Christians as the people that are shooting people, because though I understand bodily autonomy, that is a serious concern, we aren't the ones actually murdering people. Like, this works much better if you reverse it, in that the pro-choice people are actually the ones murdering the children, and then they turn to us and like, why do you have a problem with this? In fact, I've seen that exact version of this meme where they just reverse it. But yeah, so from our perspective, it is no different than if you were killing a 1, 2, 3, 5-year-old, right? We don't care. We think a life is a life. So that's why we're upset. I understand you're upset about bodily autonomy, but you have to address the issue of the life of the child. That's critical. One last meme before we go. Pro-choice meme number 4, hard to swallow pills. You personally not liking abortion is not a reason to ban all abortions for women who need them. So same old song and dance. Does this address the central issue of contention, the life of the child? No, it doesn't. We don't want to talk about that. This all hinges on a couple of interesting words in here. You personally not liking abortion. Okay, it doesn't matter whether or not I like something in this case. This isn't like, I don't like Skittles, therefore all Skittles should be banned. I actually like Skittles, so bad example. I don't like root beer. That's true. So all root beer should be banned. Nobody's saying that. This isn't, I don't personally prefer something. This is murder. Do you understand the difference between not personally liking something and thinking something is morally abysmal and evil and wicked and harming innocent people? That's an important distinction to realize. You personally not liking abortion is not a reason to ban all abortions for women who need them. All right, what does need them mean? Does need them mean I just really don't want a kid right now? Because that's not a need, that's a want. Now, if a need is like I have a medical crisis, then there has never been a piece of pro-life legislation that has not had a carve-out for a medical need. If the woman's life is actually in danger, if there's a risk of serious bodily harm or death, then there's always a carve-out for that in this legislation. In all pro-life legislation ever. All right? So this is an unrealistic thing. And unfortunately, a lot of pro-choice people are actually ignorant on this one. They don't realize that pro-life legislation has these carve-outs. A lot of people call themselves pro-choice, and then you say life of the mother, there's an exception, then they're, oh, well, yeah, I support that. Yet sometimes people want to keep the label of pro-choice even if they're actually more on the pro-life side, which is interesting. So I think that's it for today. I think I'm going to go ahead and make one more of these, and if it does well, maybe I'll do more than just one more. So let me know. The central takeaway today is the issue in contention is, what is that entity that is inside the woman? Is that a person? Is it a kitchen sink? Is it a kitty cat? What is it? We don't know. Well, the pro-life side knows, and the pro-choice side needs to give that some serious consideration and actually address that issue. If they are not willing to address that issue, then they haven't actually thought it through. So always redirect back to that. And all these other little side issues, you know, don't worry about them too much. Know for yourself what the rational answer is, but make sure that the pro-choice person has to wrestle with the actual important issue in the situation. The most important issue, the issue they don't want to talk about. All right, that's it. Have fun. Bye.